Should I take this away, Dave? Should I take it away? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's so good to see you all. I don't know if you know, some of you don't know me, but I'm Vivian, and I'm a LUT, and I'm just a winter visitor. And I'm teaching a class on the 12 powers. So I thought, what better way to talk, to have a little canned conversation with you all. The 12 powers is one of the very strong parts of unity. It goes way back. Emily Curtis Hopkins was one of the New Thought teachers, and Charles Fillmore, our founder, studied with her, and they felt very strongly that these 12 powers were important. Well, I think they are too, and every time I read them or I think about them, I get real excited about them, and that's why I wanted to do a class on it. So March the 18th, we started a class here. So to a lot of you, it's going to be old stuff. But then I don't think it's old stuff, because I think we get renewed every time we hear these. Because we take it into our subconscious. In the 12 Power book, which I didn't bring with me, there's another book in the back. And that book is by Cora Fillmore, Charles's second wife. And in that book, she does a lot of meditations. So if you're really interested in learning how to do this when we get through today, the book is wonderful. It gives you a lot of information. But what I want to do today is kind of run through these powers. So if you'll bear with me, we'll take a little time and we'll talk about it. And the first one is the crown, is in the crown, and it's faith. And that's important for us, isn't it, to have faith? It's important to start with faith, because if we don't have faith, then we have nothing. Because when everything comes in on us, we kind of drop out of it, don't we? We give up. We don't want to do that. First, I have to backtrack. Charles took this from the New Testament, and it's really about Palm Sunday, and about God or Jesus giving up and dying, being put on the cross. And so what it's all about is this time in his life when he died for us. And we get all emotional about this, but it was a wonderful thing. And what he did is he became the person that we're supposed to be. We're all supposed to be. And I think this is a beautiful way to think about Palm Sunday and Easter, that it's new life. It's giving up the old. We don't think about just daily consciousness. We think about super consciousness. We become a new person. We become the Christ. And I think that's important. So when you think about the faculty of faith, Peter was the disciple. And then when you think about Peter, or I think about Peter, I think about him on the boat. And they're in the water and the boat's rocking. And you think they're all going to drown, all these disciples that Jesus has chosen. But who do they see on shore? They see Jesus, don't they? And so when they've zeroed in on Jesus, who gets out of the boat? Peter. And Peter is named the disciple of faith. And that's the reason. But think about what Peter did. He started walking on water, didn't he? But it was storming, and he became afraid. So what happened? What happens to us? We sink. We lose faith. But what did God say? He gave him the strength to look at him and to regain his strength and follow Jesus. And that's beautiful. And we do this all the time. Every day of our life, we have this little aha moments. Well, the next power is strength. And it's located in the back of your back, in the small of your back, between your ribs and your pelvic area. And I'm going to tell you the disciple that governs that area. And strength is Andrew. And he was considered to be the strong one. So that's how he got that name. Well, when you think about your back and you get upset, or we'd say when we work hard we get pain in our back. But that's not always true. We get a pain in our back because we get upset. We get a pain in our back when things don't go right with us. So that's why we have this this strength power is in the back. And you think about this, the strength power is located in the back. And so if we believe spiritually, it's really important with thinking of the examples that in the Bible, David and Goliath, it's all mental, but Goliath thought he was strong and he's going to kill David, didn't he? But David had strength within himself, and he didn't die. He took and slung the slingshot, the stone, and he killed Goliath. So it's important to think about how spiritual strength overcomes material strength. And then Samson and Delilah, Adam and Eve, they're all perfect examples if you read the Bible and you meditate on it. And these are the centers. And I want to tell you also, kind of go back, the faith center is deep blue. Now you're going to wonder, why is she talking about color? Well, I don't know about you, but I feel good when I see the blue sky, the blue grass, when I see a beautiful color, if I see a rainbow. There's a purpose to that when you stop and think about it, is to remind us of our faith and how these centers are within us. The color for strength is green. I live out in the foothills. So when we're driving into church, it's interesting that the farmers plant these crops. And it gives me such a good feeling to look at these crops, all these different crops, and they're all different colors of green. So about 3 Sundays ago, they worked up the field. The fields were all worked up, and the fields were all green. And we had just started a class on the 12 powers, and it was such a wonderful feeling to feel the surge of strength within me. So it's surprising, like when we see a rainbow and we feel good about it. There's a reason we feel good about it. We know it's all centered around our faith in God. So I think it's really important about that. So I'm going to tell you the different colors as we go along. Well, the next center is in the stomach, and that's wisdom. And you stop and think about that. All of our feelings are in our stomach, aren't they? If we get upset, we get a stomach ache. If something bothers us, we get a stomach ache. Well, there's a reason for that, because this is all where the wisdom is located. And this is what we're thinking about. And behind this center is the solar plex. And this is where everything goes through this solar plex, the digestive system in our system. We digest the food. And then after we digest the food, it goes into the system of our body, and it makes nails, hair, fingernails. Well, it's the same way with strength. It's very important for us to have good strength, good thinking. And that's what this sensation is. And then, like I said, how many times every time you get bad news, you think your stomach gets upset or you get butterflies? It really doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter about your education. It's an internal feeling. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have things going right within the center of your stomach, you're upset. You get gut feelings of indigestion. So yellow is the color associated with wisdom. Then we come to love. And love isn't hard to decide what it's all about, is it? We all know what love is. But a lot of us are affected by this. Some of us are very affected because we are possessive with our love. Well, it can work the other way too. So when we think about, one example is, we give a gift to a child. And the first thing we do is, like I give a doll to one of the little grandkids, and the first thing they do, they undress it, they comb the hair, and here I am thinking of this beautiful doll. I thought she was going to keep it, put it on the shelf. Wrong. Or you give them a train, and they got this train out, and they want to see it crash. But we gave the gift, so let it go. So it's all not negative, but it is important to remember. And I don't want to talk about negativity of love, because this week I had some wonderful stories come on TV. On the Ellen DeGeneres program, they told about a teacher, and this teacher is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and she teaches kindergarten, and she gives every morning. These little kids come to school. If they haven't had a bath, they get a bath. If they haven't had breakfast, they get breakfast. If they haven't got clean clothes on, she gives them clean clothes. All of this comes from her pocket. And I think that's such a wonderful expression. Well, Ellen gave her $10,000, and Target gave her $20,000. You stop and think about it, the world is good. And then another story, there was a music teacher in the Bronx, and she took in these children that nobody, was lost in the system, but she gave them hope by teaching them how to play percussion instruments. Now, I'm not crazy about percussion instruments, but can't you imagine a little kid that's troubled and upset, don't have anything? They would love to play on these xylophones and drums and beat it out. And she touched their hearts. And then another one was about a family on, I think it was CBS, and they adopt 6 children. And these are young people, and they're giving this love. So it's so important to think about what does happen and how important it is in our lives. Well, the next power is centered in our throat, at the root of the tongue, and the color is purple, and the disciple is Philip. Charles Fillmore wrote, "The power center in the throat controls all the vibrations, energies of the organism. It is the open door between the formless and formed words, a vibration pertaining to the expressions of sound." Think about this for a minute. Many times your thoughts and feelings surge up around you, which are, of course, formless. They're invisible. But in your mind, shapes of them, we shape them into words. And out comes these sound capsules called words. Now, every word, as it passes through this magical miracle door, receives a charge of power. So what you're saying has got some power to it. The character of that charge, positive or negative, is determined by the consciousness of the individual. That's really important when you think about it. So it's what you're thinking is how your words come out. And when you hear someone talking, you can tell right away what kind of a person they are by the way that they talk and how they express themselves. And I think that is so very important. So we have to seek through meditation and really use the Christ as a personal guide. And don't fall into the power. Don't let the power of spirit not be used. It's really important. So imagination is the next power, and it's located between the eyes. And this location is sometimes called what? The third eye. And the disciple is Bartholomew, and the color is blue. I think it's very interesting that a person can close their eyes and you can imagine or you can see a movie. How many of you have done that? If you stop and think about it, it's like running a film, isn't it? And we've gone to shows and seen hypnotists talk to somebody, and they go into like a trance, and they do certain crazy things on stage. Well, in the Bible days, the prophets received prophecies, warnings, and wisdom through visions and dreams. And this all comes through the imagination. So when you sleep, remember your dreams. Think about what you're seeing. It's very important. Think about Joseph interpreting the Pharaoh's dreams of the 7 lean years and the 7 fat cattle. It was about the lean years and the fat years. And it saved a lot of people's lives because they stored up the product. Now, understanding goes along with this power of imagination. And the next 2 powers are understanding, and they're in the forehead and will. Both are located in the forehead, and the disciples are Thomas and Matthew. The colors are gold and silver. To understand why they operate together, you have to think of them as a business. The will is an executive department, and it carries out the executive orders. And what you understand is to be right and good, or what you understand is to be the best course of action. These are your faculties of mind that connect the inner world of thought to the outer world of manifestation. So what you will, you produce through your understanding. But you're also, in a business, you always have to have a boss, don't you? Or a person in charge. And it's important for us to listen to that. So, to be more specific, if your thoughts are predominantly materialistic and you worship money and power, then your actions are going to be directed towards that, aren't they? You're going to cultivate influential friends, reading financial statements, study the way of making more money or increasing your investment. Or to put it more bluntly, a person who loves to play golf isn't going to spend time playing tennis, are they? He will act out his golf thoughts. There are two kinds of understanding: intellectual understanding and spiritual understanding. Intellectual understanding is gathered from outside yourself through the five senses. How many of us do that? We don't go within. We've got to remember to go in and meditate. Spiritual understanding wells up from within you through initiative and inspiration. Intellectual understanding isn't bad, it's just not complete. When your understanding is complete, your actions are bound to be prone to error. An example of this is the three dimensions of form: length, breadth, and depth. It's confusing if you could only see how tall or how wide it is, and you don't see the depth of it. Think about that. Thus it is with intelligence. If you're just in the outside world and you're not thinking about what is inside of you, which is intellectual understanding, that you see, what you read, what you hear from teachers, parents, friends, is part of a picture. But if the material on which you base your actions, you've got to base it on your spiritual, what's inside of you. Your inner senses of intuition and inspiration in order to receive light or guidance from the universe of wisdom. This is very important. The faculty of order is in the stomach area at the navel. We all know that the navel is a place where the umbilical cord is attached to newly formed infants. And I think, what a miracle. Here is how the dictionary describes this important connection. The navel is a control center. Before birth, the control of nourishment and elimination of waste, basics of growth are administered in an orderly way from the mother to the child. We think of them of the faculty of order as a control center for the individual growth, physically, mentally, or spiritually. The faculty of order is a department that makes things go right. Because we know that if you don't feed this little child the right way, what happens? They come out malnourished. A good analogy to make this clear is to compare the store manager in a theater. As you stop and think about it, everything runs smoothly when you go to the theater and you see a play, doesn't it? And the phone rings, but who set that up? Your stage manager did. So, faculty of order is doing all this for you, and that's important for you to connect the two. Or let's see, you pick up a picture on the table. That's also done by the stage manager. So you get the idea. The stage manager sees it all unfolding in the right way with perfect order for harmonious unfoldment of the story, and that's important. This is how this disciplined faculty of order assists the unfolding of Christ in you. When you persistently affirm in meditation that the faculty of order is to be spiritually quickened, you find divine order before established it. You establish this in your mind, body, and order. You are in the right place at the right time. You learn this. Now, the faculty of order is very sensitive and will respond quickly when you turn the situation over to its control. You can test this, and I did this. The next time everything seems to be going wrong, and you feel confused, and at the wit's end, affirm divine order. How many of you do that? Do you think about that? Who should we be calling on? We should be calling on the Christ, shouldn't we? How many times do we do this? It's very important. So, to you, self-all is in divine order. First, you feel a relaxed of tension. If this happens, you'll feel relaxed of tension. You're lifting of the weight. And when you look back at the situation, you'll say, that was a turning point, wasn't it? Everything turned out good. Well, zeal is the next power, and it's located behind the back of the neck at the top of the spine. This would seem to be logical for many of us are familiar with those back of the neck pain in the neck, tension, headaches that usually follow a period of activity when we're emotionally upset or we're anxious. And that's where it hits us, doesn't it? In these instances, our zeal faculty is unwisely used and it result in a short circuit of power, causing congestion and stress at the zeal center. So we get a pain in the neck, don't we? Yes, zeal is a sensitive faculty, and unless it is under the direction of the indwelling Christ, it is prone to boil over. The disciple who represents zeal is Simon of Canaanite. Zeal is the faculty of the mind that gives us goal power. Zeal is energy. It is a push that drives us toward our goal in spite of obstacles of hindrance. Zeal is enthusiasm, persistence, and motivation. We need to develop this important faculty and learn how to use it rightly. When you stop and think about this, Charles Fillmore used to say, "I verily sizzle with zeal." And he was known for this statement. And I think that's important to think about. This faculty of zeal is not motivated not by the inner spark, but by some outer suggestion. So we have to think, we want it to be the inner spark. We want to be thinking about the Christ within us. I think that's very important. Inner motivated zeal is constant and durable, persistent, and it flows from the spiritual source within you. Zeal, when it is motivated, is from within. It's like an old song, the Old Man River. It just keeps rolling along. Dependable is another description of zeal, and you know how much people like dependable people. As you bless and quicken your faculty of zeal and commit to the control and direction of the Christ within, you will find yourself boundless energy, never tiring, but always active, gracious, persistent. Zeal is a tremendously important faculty of the mind. When we combine zeal, spiritual zeal, with imagination, our creativity is not chained to a certain place or time or mood, but gushes forth at our beck and call. So think about that next time you get a back pain in the neck. It is important to combine zeal with wisdom and imagination. It's a real secret of genius. You look at these little kids and how excited they are and how much enthusiasm they've got. It's all for a reason. Well, orange is a color when we think about zeal. So now we're thinking about renunciation, which is located in the lower back at the base of the spine. And the disciple represented is Thaddeus. The color is russet. In Fillmore's book, The 12 Powers, is more specific. To the Apostle Thaddeus carries forward the work of the elimination of error, thoughts, mind, and waste food from the body. Now think about that. The nerve center is located deep in the lower bowels. Then you think, that's kind of gruesome, huh? Now to some, certainly to myself, when I first read Fillmore's book, this seemed a little, how should I say, indelicate. Something that isn't talked about much. Yes, when we clear our minds out of the no-no that is well-meaning but puritanically modest persons have laid on us, we can understand how the faculty of renunciation or elimination is not only very important, but it's a good, clean, and tremendous, it's necessary for both mental and physical. Just the idea of elimination in the health and regeneration of the body, so it is necessary in the mind. Fillmore writes, there must be renunciation or letting go of old thoughts before the new can take place in the consciousness. So think about it. It's our thoughts that we're going to let go. And so that's what we want to think about. It means those thoughts on the conscious level of the mind, it means those beliefs, attitudes, automatically emotional response that have been impressed in our subconscious. level of the mind and dominates our behavior. Examples are oversensitive, criticism, impatience, a martyr's attitude, or a sense of inferiority. We could go on and on. We all know people who you have said, I wish he or she would change her attitude. We don't like negative people, do we? We don't like them around us. So negative thinking contaminates the body and causes illness, just like a virus playing havoc in the body. So remember the song, let's actuate the positive, eliminate the negative. That's an oldie, huh? It is not enough to plaster on positive thinking or positive thoughts of guilt or greed, ambition, and very vanity festers underneath the veneer. The negativity, as the song says, must be eliminated. This is where the faculty of renunciation comes in. Let it go. To deny is to clear out, release, make a vacuum. The positive is to come in. A very good and effective denial. I am free from tension, stress, and strain. I completely depend on infinite wisdom to guide me into the right direction. The last of the 12 powers that I want to talk about is life. Now, Judas was a disciple that betrayed Jesus, wasn't he? He is also the disciple of the power of life. Similar wrong responsibility or wasteful use of life principles by us betrays or stands in the way of effortless unfoldment of Christ in us. So if we're not thinking positive, good thoughts, and we're not using that power, we're letting it go, aren't we? In many ways, we misuse or waste the life energy that flows from the universal sea of life, energy of God, through the individual Christ in us. Most of us have been tried, dragged out, exhausted, weary many times. This is seldom caused by actual physical labor, but rather by negative, destructive, emotional states allowed to run riot within us, isn't it? Our mental does a job on us, and if we don't keep it under control, that's what happens. Well, we can all relate to this story. John, average man, reads the morning paper at breakfast and emotionally relates to all the negative news. The current political scandal, the dip in the stock market, accidents, bank robberies, and so on. Then he goes on to work. He fights traffic the whole way, curses as he chooses the wrong lane, and gets held up by a stalled car. All the way to work, his motors are grinding against each other. At work, an order comes in, it gets canceled. A memo from his boss comes, makes him very tense and apprehensive because he doesn't know what's going to happen. At lunch, he gets into an emotional discussion about inflation and politics or whatever. Well, he arrives home weary and relaxes by spending the evening sipping martinis and dozing in front of the television. His wife complains that he isn't romantic anymore. She might as well be married to a zombie. John, average man, he has misused or wastefully used all the important life faculties through emotional indulgence. Does that sound familiar? Visually, the same person going through a typical day without responding with a negative emotion to the innumerable temptations can do so. He reads the paper. He doesn't let the problems at work upset him. He doesn't have problems getting in the car. He turns on the radio. He's relaxed. He enjoys it. Thus, a serene mind, he handles the problems creatively and successfully. He arrives home, relaxed, at peace, just as in love with his wife, and appreciative of anything she does, as the first day of marriage. In short, negative attitudes and emotional states drain life energy and betrays the indwelling Christ, which is trying to express and unfold through us. The mental, emotional state of lust first comes to mind when you think of your life organs. The faculty of life, it's the center of the body. And lust or continuous and excessive mental concentration on sex, it's an inevitable emotional repercussion, will rob physical energy and keep us from operating at our best in every area of our life. But lust isn't the only betrayer of that life energy. But we think of that way. Greed, ambition, vanity, and their lieutenants of emotion, of jealousy, hostility, impatience, resentment, self-pity, anger, and the list goes on. But very unspiritual emotions state we sometimes entertain also deplete life energies, because the negative is what we're thinking is going to happen. You're going to deplete your life energy. Cora Fillmore, in her companion book, The 12 Powers, Christ Enthroned in Man, states, Judas represents the negative pole of life. Well, you know that Judas was the one that betrayed Jesus, and that's why they're describing this way. Jesus, the positive pole, is the center of the crown. So you've got the positive and the negative. A flow of energy requires these two poles, positive energy, positive and negative. But if the negative pole is weakened, it automatically weakens the positive pole. I guess that's a electricity philosophy. I'm not into electricity, so that was all new to me. In short, if one weakens, they both weaken. This means that when you weaken the life center through the dissipating of life energies in emotional storms, if you're always upset, you're going to be upset in your life. It's going to be the way it is. The human body operates on the same principle that governs the power of electricity. The cells are little batteries, and science has measured the charge of energy they emit. Strong emotions disrupt the power lines. They short-circuit the life's energy, which burn out the cells, tissues, and organs. This we call sickness. Then we childishly try to blame God by crying out, if God is supposed to be so loving, why is this happening to me? How many of us said that? This, you see, shifts the blame from our own, shifts our blame from our own ego to God, even though in the next moment we're appealing to God for help. We know who to go to, don't we? We have been blessed with these wonderful powers, but it's up to us to use them and build up the power that we possess if we are to use them. This month, we've been talking, learning to let go. How many of you have had this little book? Do you read it every morning or night? Well, today is Palm Sunday. And the affirmation is, today I see a promise of Lent as a clear and joyful vision of possibilities of my spiritual commitment. I move forward fearlessly, eager to experience my personal resurrection into a new dimension of experience and expression. So we have this opportunity to use all these powers that we are given to be better people. So if you have any questions about it, I would read the book, The 12 Powers of Man, and I would also do Cora's Christ Enthroned in Man, because there's no reason for us to feel bad or let these things happen to us, because we do have the answers, and they're all within. I'd like to close with a meditation on the 12 powers. So, hope I can see. Is that good?